By one. We can start with the E. Jean Carroll suit. She was a person that she allegedly 3 decades earlier said she was.
The E. Jean Carroll S. assault case is likely to go away, likely to get reversed, based on George Stephanopoulos, ABC having to pay Trump $15 million to his library because he claimed certain things. And it was a judge, actually, the judge of the E. Jean Carroll case, that first used the R word against Trump. And that is reversible. It'll take before Trump gets into office, but that's the sweep of the thing. And then Trump won't have to pay his $83 million to E. Jean Carroll. We hope he doesn't have to pay one dime. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. Is someone innocent until proven guilty, or can the most jacked up, cockamamie, biased lawsuit make someone pay $83 million? Think about it, $83 million. And it was all politicized with Democrat DAs, Democrats changing rules, Democrat billionaire donors. In one case, Reid Hoffman, who is the owner of LinkedIn, funded the entire, went to E. Jean Carroll, said, I will fund the whole thing, right after Trump announces that he's running for office. Watch this. This is we're getting our information from the Victor Davis Hanson channel, new to YouTube, Victor Davis Hanson.
In the E. Jean Carroll civil suit, she alleged that she was sexually attacked by him. The jury found that he did not commit, but that he had committed, there was a likelihood he had committed sexual assault. Therefore, and the judge, Cohen, as I remember his name, had misspoken and said, well, somebody had corrected him or reminded him that he had never been convicted of rape. And he said, well, what's the difference? Something along that line. And that I think will be cause for reversal.
That's almost the end of this whole thing, is that it's cause for reversal that the judge led the jury, said it out loud to everybody, and then that was just being repeated by George Stephanopoulos, but it was false. He was never convicted of that R word. Trump never was. It was assault at worst and probably full of some really bad information. Here's Victor Davis Hanson unpacking what was wrong with that whole lawsuit, how none of the facts added up. And remember, Victor Davis Hanson is the world's most brilliant historian, but he's a, down the road kind of middle right Republican.
By one. We can start with the E. Jean Carroll suit. She was a person that she allegedly 3 decades earlier said she was sexually assaulted by Donald Trump. She couldn't remember the year, it was inexact. She couldn't remember what she wore. In fact, she said she wore a particular dress that wasn't even in production at the time that the event supposedly took place.
And we know that she wore that dress because she was on the cover of Vogue or whatever the magazine was that she was on. She wore the outfit she claimed that she was assaulted in. They went back and looked at when that thing was manufactured. It was not manufactured at the time that she claims the assault happened. It was manufactured at a much later date. She's confused on the dates at the very least. Now, the other thing is, it happened decades earlier, 3 decades earlier. So how is she able to bring this case up? That was also where Reid Hoffman worked with the corrupt New York legal system to change the statute of limitations so that they could go back into assaults, claiming, that around 2020 and forward, because of COVID restrictions, that people weren't able to bring their abuse cases in. That was the big cover for the why. Really, they were trying to open it back up so that E. Jean Carroll could bring this one assault case up. No other assault case came out in New York. Think of all the cases that could have come out by an extension of the statute of limitations. Opening it back up, you'd think like hundreds of assault cases would come up. No, just one. Just E. Jean Carroll, and it was just after Trump announced that he was running for president. That's why this whole thing smells so political. I'm not anti-woman in any way, but at the same time, I'm against how easy it is for a woman to make this accusation. And he just kept saying, she's not my type. There's things about the whole case where E. Jean Carroll, it doesn't wash. And Democrats ran with this purely to slander him before an election for election interference. But Clarence Thomas is going to weigh in at the very end.
Stranger still, the scenario that she gave was almost exactly the same as a plot of a TV show, almost exactly the same, of a person who goes into the same department store, goes to a dressing room, and supposedly is assaulted by a celebrity.
There was an actual episode of a Law and Order episode, which she said she's a huge fan of. Okay, she said it many times that she's a huge fan, and never brought up that plot until suddenly after this lawsuit runs. Then everyone goes back into her previous tweets and previous comments where she said, I'm a huge fan of Law and Order. And lo and behold, there's this one episode that is the exact plot, including the details of the department store where she makes the claim. So it's as if it didn't actually happen to her, and then grabbed this plot and reconstructed everything, because this is kind of a collusion with Hollywood. And these kinds of details weren't allowed to be brought up in court. This was what Alina Habba was screaming and complaining about. Alina Habba was saying that they were cutting off all their stories, weren't allowed to properly testify and all that, because it was obvious this thing was a Democrat runaround.
She couldn't answer any questions about the actual details. The suit that she filed in front of a favorable judge was funded entirely by Reid Hoffman, a mega billionaire and Biden donor.
Okay, so more news on Reid Hoffman before we get to our final Clarence Thomas tweet. Reid Hoffman, when he said when Trump won, he said he's leaving the country because he was afraid for his life, certainly legally. He said he knew for a fact that Trump would go after him legally once he took office. And Reid Hoffman just said he hopes that it is fair play and goes after his mere taxes, because he could send the IRS after him, and not something much worse. What is much worse? Reid Hoffman famously is on a certain list of people that went to a certain island. Now, there's another tie in this whole thing that's very strange. Reid Hoffman used to work for Elon Musk at PayPal. And Elon Musk said he knew all of his weird proclivities, and said it doesn't surprise him that he went to a certain island, and that's why he did all this funding of Trump's opponents to try and make sure that they won, because he's afraid of a certain list going to the public where he would definitely be prosecuted, go to jail. That was his big fear. And Elon Musk has weighed in now against Reid Hoffman. This is the guy, the executive, who helped fund LinkedIn. This is a tweet about Clarence Thomas by a guy going to Conway. This is Kellyanne Conway's ex-husband. She's since divorced him. He's a Democrat. She's a Republican, obviously. But here's George Conway III. Justice Clarence Thomas just said that the E. Jean Carroll case is election interference orchestrated by Democrats. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you, little boy? They're mocking Conway. Why, yes, you would. You even bragged about it. So he bragged about knowing about E. Jean Carroll, and there in the tweet below is a picture of George Conway with E. Jean Carroll. This was all a giant Democrat operation. Clarence Thomas knows what it is. So this thing has a very good chance of going up to higher courts on appeal and getting reversed, according even to Victor Davis Hanson and Clarence Thomas. He's saying if it's election interference by Democrats, it's going to get overturned if they can get it to him. What do you guys think? Does this thing get overturned? Does it make it to Clarence Thomas? I'm Doug in Exile.